Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Thoth the Scribe podcast, available on all podcasting platforms. And I have with me a very special guest, an artist of all different types of medium, called Lois Songster. How are you, Lois?
Hi, I'm doing great. I love chatting with you. I'm excited to be on this podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to appear on my show, because, I talk a lot about, very controversial, very kind of out of the way subjects. But I like to do it in a clear, thoughtful, scientific way. But I also want to bring back the kind of magic to human consciousness. And I want to bring it back through meaningful, deep, interesting conversations. So before we get to all that, can you introduce yourself in 50 characters or under?
Sure. I am Lois. I'm an artist and illustrator dealing with stories, world building, animals, or mythical buildup of any kind. I work in a lot of mediums, digital, gouache, you name it. I've probably tried it out or done it.
Yeah. So take me back to your titular years. When did you want to become an artist, and why? Why?
What possibly inspired me? So I mean, like a lot of artists, I was drawing since I was a kid, and I did a lot of like middle school, elementary school, like drawing the horses, drawing the animals. Then I drew my own characters. I started creating characters in high school, like I made a couple of animals. I grew really fascinated with creating my own religions because yeah.
Creating your own religions, yeah. We'll get back to that, of course.
Yeah, so I did that and world building. And then in college, actually, I was stuck between choosing being an ecologist and being an artist. And I made the decision of like, I could go through ecology school, be really depressed but have a job, or be an artist and kind of take a chance at it. And I wanted to do art. So I went to school, made up my own major in illustration, and then I've been freelance since I graduated. There was a couple of part-time jobs. I was like, maybe I'll work in the law field, maybe I'll work as a baker, and I could not do 4 a.m. and I could not do legal affairs. So I am definitely a full-time freelance artist now.
Yes. You don't want to be, I don't want to say that name, but, the kind of a slime of the earth, with being a kind of a lawyer or attorney. But, you have to sell your soul somewhere, but in different portions, yeah. You have smaller,
really decide.
Yeah, you have smaller portions of selling your soul, and you have big portions. And but moving on, but seriously, folks. What was your first kind of real, authentic, impactful artistic experience? What was your first revelation that art is a type of a great medium, or a very great way to express yourself, or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So understanding that, feel like having art feel like it was the communication for me, or resonating with it. I think when I was younger, it was feeling the special bond when I would make characters or draw things, and I would practice. I literally could not stop thinking about it. I would draw every day after school. Other people would be playing games or hanging out, and I'd be drawing. I mean, I did other things, but I couldn't imagine not doing it. I describe it as like an itch. Like if I'm too far long away without drawing something or painting or making something, I get really crabby.
Yeah, you turn to Mr. Jekyll.
Yeah, but I don't think if you don't like doing art, then you don't really have that itch. It's like whatever you like doing, if you don't do it long enough, you start getting an itch for it. So that's just the itch I need to scratch.
Yeah, that's a great description. I also have that itch, and I paint, but I am a more modest kind of painter. I don't do a lot of scenery and background and objects and life drawings and all that stuff. But I just stay in my lane and what I like.
Mhm.
So you said before in our pre-interview that you had a lot of experience, or you tried a lot of things. You experimented with a lot of mediums. So
Mhm.
how that came to factor in your current uh, incarnation as an artist?
I think it gave me a lot of springboards to jump off of. Having an education where I could try like paper making, jewelry making,
Mm,
ceramics, or more digital design, or more traditional. Like, I realized I could not do oil paintings, but I also realized that jewelry makers work incredibly hard. So it gave me this empathy for other creators if I was bad at something. Um, but I liked learning, especially how to make my own materials. So paper making is like, I use that in my work where I try and make my own paper, or I try to find made paper because I like the quality of it. Other mediums, like I have my digital work has a lot of traditional values to it because I have that background. Or I did some sculpture work, and now I like finding things to paint on that could be deemed as sculptural or not exactly paintings. Like, you could have a painting and hang it on a wall, but why can't a painting be like something that you can hold in your hands, or something that like paint your cabinets to be a beautiful Renaissance painting? Or why don't
mm,
you paint like your light switch to be like different little tiny images that you can see throughout the day? So a painting, it gave me the perspective of like a painting or a story doesn't just have to be on the walls. And honestly, because of
mm,
that, I hate frames. I hate canvas because of that, because I feel like it's incredibly traditional. I mean, it's good. Traditional is good,
yes.
but you don't need to be limited by it.
Yeah. So can you recollect what what was the moment that kind of you realized you came into being as an artist? You found your niche, shall we say, as an artist. What,
Oh gosh.
yes.
I
What
still
was
don't
the,
feel like, yeah. I mean, that's like I feel like that's a hard question for any artist. Some people will always feel like they're an artist, and some people will feel like they're always chasing after
mm,
being an artist. That elusive, like, I am now a true artist.
mm,
Um, and I feel more like an artist than ever, running my own business, doing commissions for people, filling out their visual needs. But being a true artist, like, I still feel like I'm on the path of learning what that means, or how I can become
yes.
even more of that.
Yeah, my drift was more in the way of like your general style, because I see
Mm,
a common thread in all of your
mhm.
works, and they are great because you try to maintain the things that work, kind of open outlines, and to have a little bit more murky color palette, but that is
Yeah.
nice and colorful. So can you talk about your artistic process, shall we say? That's
Okay.
the main course. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So when I'm making my images, I've learned to pick limited palettes, because from a watercolor background, if I choose all the colors at once, it does become murky. It becomes brown, and too many colors at once isn't a good thing. So trying to limit my palettes, focus on three, and then start adding a couple more as needed. I like starting out with outlines that I can fill. One, because I don't like just a shape. I like having clear outlines, more of a graphic novel kind of style.
Mm.
I
And you
think when
make
I'm building,
sketches, of course.
I do, yes. I either, if it's figures or animals, I do like sketch pages first, and then I'll pick a sketch from there that I like and build it from there, clean up the lines. But sometimes, like, I'll just go into it, which the cleanliness in me is like, don't do that. Don't paint it all at once. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it. Nothing bad will happen. And then something always goes wrong, being like, oh my God. And you just have to learn to fix that and work with it and move on. And a lot of my artwork process is kind of in the moment. Like, I plan things. I have work with clients that I go through planning process with. But a lot of my personal work is kind of, I get this like thought in my head that just starts like bugging me, that itch. And I need to get it down really quickly before I forget it. And then once I have it down, either I'll sit with it and be like, what the heck was I thinking? And start playing with it from there. Or I'm totally on the wavelength and I totally get it. And I just finish the whole thing in like 30 minutes. And I'm like, dang, like that
Damn, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the wavelength, I call them like wavelengths, where like sometimes I'm like right in line with my inspiration. I can finish something, I get it. And then other times it's like the wavelength hits me for a second and then it just completely goes away again. And I'm like, wait, where did that go? Hold on, don't go yet. So that's kind of like the inspiration, the kind of start of some of my ideas. I'm inspired a lot by mythological figures. So like there was one piece that I did called the Saguapa, and she's a Dominican Republic female mythological form. It's a fascination, but yeah, it's a fascination between dangerous women and nature. And this
femme fatale, yes.
Yes, exactly. And also like this constant mythological presence in like a lot of
French.
Pardonnez-moi.
Pardon-moi.
There we go. Yeah. But there's this, not only in Dominican Republic, but in these mythologies all over the world of like women who look great. They're amazing. You're so attracted to them. And then you get down to their feet and it's just like missing animals, backwards, tentacles, whatever. Every culture has something like that. So like, those are the kind of myths I'm super fascinated by, of like, why is this a constant human thought?
Cthulhu myth women, the tentacle part,
Yes, exactly. But it's in every culture. You can see gorgeous women who suddenly, like, you look down far enough and suddenly you're like, that ain't a woman. And like, it's in every culture.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It stems, I don't know where it stems from, but it's very interesting, because that type of depiction in the far past of human history, it was considered something that was good. That women had this kind of supernatural power. They were more communicative with nature. They were in touch with the divine, shall we say, and they could, they had premonitions, and there were prophets and prophetesses, shall we say. Like the Oracle of Delphi, it wasn't a dude, but was a very influential woman. Woman that was received a lot of gifts, a lot of bribery, shall we say, in today's terms. And it's like it. Well, I equate it to the kind of mediums and psychics, but of the past. But I believe that their kind of prophecies were a lot more accurate and a lot more realistic. So I just want to harken back. You thought you were out of the woods and you're out of trouble, but now you're not, because you've mentioned that you invented religions and so
a couple,
and that is very interesting to me. So can you talk about why first? Secondly, are you a cult leader? And thirdly, well, do you have any kind of affinity to spirituality or religion in general?
Okay, so first question, I became interested in doing this because my family didn't raise me in religion at all. So I was, they had religious families, but I was not. So I had even less than regular, like, I guess American children where like, you know, they kind of get Christian references at least, or Jewish references or something, or whatever their family teaches.
Yes.
And I didn't know anything. So I kind of felt like I had this like gap of like, well, I mean, I don't know if I'm spiritual. I don't know what's out there, but I don't understand other references as well. So in high school, I started like taking ideas either from myself or filling in voids that I had in thoughts of like, well, why don't people worship this? Or like, why, how do these religions work? So for example, and no, I'm not a cult leader, although if people formed a cult around my art,
you know, that was a redundant question, of course, but that's essential. But you have to keep people awake in this types of format. You have to, people wake up, damn you, because this is interesting. So go on.
Yeah, so I started thinking about like tiny things, because there's not so much like specific worship anymore, at least I think in modern day religions, unless you go to like more Eastern influences, which I've seen in other cultures of like, you know, you worship a specific area or you worship a specific deity kind of. So for example, one of my religions, and this one I made in college, was the worship of two-dimensional beings, because we always worship three-dimensional or up. Like any religion is just like going to the next dimension. But I wanted to make images and drawings, which by the way, making two-dimensional gods on paper is really hard to communicate because people are already assuming it's three-dimensional. Yeah. But
it's two-dimensional.
Yes, exactly. But I wanted to make something that people focused on of like, they already thought the second dimension was perfection. There was no complexity of the third dimension. It was just lines and figures, and there would be a being that only lived in the second dimension. And the only way you could worship it was by drawing on walls or drawing on flat surfaces and leaving it there for that being. Yeah. And other things, like I made a religion about wind chimes, because I like the idea of having festivals about nonsensical things again. And if you made a new type of wind chime that this being, I called it the being of many ears. And if it made it, and if you made a noise that it really liked, it would reward you with a sound that you had wished to hear. So for example, if you missed your loved one's voice again, or if you missed this thing that doesn't exist anymore, it would give you that noise.
Sounds like a great manga, yeah.
But it ties into the world building. What else did I make? I think I liked making creatures that were kind of deities. Oh, I did make a religion about, it was separated into 3 cults of that religion, based on 1 or 2 beings that were tied together in one body. One cult wanted one being to win, the other cult wanted the second being to win, and the middle cult, which was about balance, didn't want either of them to win and just wanted it to be as it was. So 2 types of change or balance. So I did a lot of like studies and drawings about what these creatures would look like, and like just thought about that. It was just kind of like a thought exercise for me, I guess.
So how do you manifest those ideas, that those drawings, or it didn't came into fruition? Or it did, I don't know.
Some of them did. Some of them I used for my exit show when I graduated college, with varying levels of success. Either people were like, I don't get it, or people were like, I really like this, but I don't like to understand the context. And I'm like, exactly.
Yeah, that's why it's great, because you don't understand it,
I did a lot of sketches. It was a lot of character creature design to see how you could, I guess, build a religion around like a specific deity. And I liked deity creation. I liked making mythological kind of weird animals, basically.
Yes, I like it. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about your obsession of myth, shall we say.
Okay.
Or not your obsession, maybe it's derogatory, but
no, I love it. It's okay.
Okay, because I remember I had an argument with someone, I don't even want to mention it because about the nature of the word obsession, the meaning of the word. And I said, well, I want to describe it like this. When you say obsession, like you obsess over someone or you're a stalker or something like this. And she said it was, oh shit, I said she, oh, I'm canceled. So that person, that individual said that the word obsession has one meaning, you know, is someone that is driven crazy by passions, and they are doing everything wrong in their lives, and they are just obsessed about that one thing, and they can't let it go. So, and I said, no, my art is my obsession, I said. My art is my obsession. And she said, it's bad to put it that way, to say obsession.
I didn't realize the word had so much baggage.
yeah, because, you know, in Hebrew, it even has almost a negative connotation. I say, and it sounds even, you know, more menacing in Hebrew. Obsessia. Yeah.
Obsession. Okay.
Yeah. Obsession.
That does sound.
Yes.
It's amazing how a similar word in different languages can have different, like, I guess, emotions behind it.
Yes, it's a borrowed word, of course. You know, from Latin, Greek. I can't remember what, but I think obsession is originated in Latin, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. But going back to your obsession with myth, I have the green light to call it obsession. And can you expand upon that idea? When did your passion for myth and your interest in all those kind of universal concepts, all different types of spirits and deities, when did it originate?
Well, let's see. I knew, so when I originally made art, like when I was young, like a kid, I would make my own characters. And as a lot of artists know, when you start making your own characters, they need a world to be in. And there's general worlds, like, you know, the world around us. And I think me making my own myths was my own form of escapism. Like I could make up these worlds and make up these places that my characters could be in, because I already lived in real life. I didn't want to make them based in real life.
Yes.
Which I've seen a lot of
everybody should live in real life. Yeah. It's preferable. It's preferable. Yeah.
I'm here in real life, but I want to give my character something else because I'm already experiencing this. So I started, and I really like, I guess, the format. I've always liked reading like fantasy stories and fiction stories.
Yeah.
And I would always be curious about like, and where did they come from? Because they all kind of, some of them have the same kind of storyline. So following that thread of like, all right, so original stories, where do they come from? And, you know, they get older and older to myths, like the King Arthur myths, or if you read any of like the Disney movies, they all come from like stories from like German storytellers who would collect them from villagers. And apparently they're pretty brutal. Jury's still out. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I became fascinated so I was young when I was going through all those fantasies and myths and stuff like that. And I got pretty tired. By the time I got to the end of high school, I was pretty tired of European-centric myths, because that's,
me too.
You know, it's very centric on that.
It's very centric. Of course.
And I started looking at other cultures, because when I was a child, my Nana gave me the Monkey King stories that are in Chinese myths. The problem was it was in Chinese. So, well, not the problem. It was in original Chinese. So I couldn't read it.
You're talking about the Journey to the West, of course.
Exactly. So I would read that book. It was fully illustrated. And I'd read that book, but I couldn't understand it because it was in Mandarin, I guess.
She gave you the OG copy. Yeah.
She did, which was great. And so then I went back to that book, looking at those myths about like, okay, so what's up with the Monkey King and the Journey to the West? Like, who are all these characters? And then went out from there of like, I became really interested, like the Balinese have fascinating cultural myths about like, I can't remember her name right now, but like this giant lion dog and then like a witch that comes around every season. And then like there's island myths about certain like little deities that live in like coconut trees or like in the ocean. Like the ocean is a huge mythological ground to look into. And so I became really fascinated in ancient myths and cultures, or not so ancient, I guess, like non-Eurocentric cultures. And then from there, I started wanting to I started seeing holes in things of like, well, you know, we don't worship this anymore, or, you know, what if we did worship like time or dimensions or like, but in a different way, or I don't know, something as benign as like, I worked in a restaurant for a while and I was like, what if there's a deity that waitresses could pray to when they're really pissed off?
Yeah.
So things like
Yeah.
that. Like, why don't we have Monday deities of like, oh, many-armed waitress, please give me the patience to not smack this customer upside the head.
Yes, I want to see that movie actually. Yeah, well, that will be interesting.
Yeah.
Like a waitress opening a cult, inviting in all those kind of you know, bitter waitresses trying to
Yeah, making their own
trying to
god.
take down the system, yeah, through the worship of the deity that demands the blood of the, you know, of
The
the
unruly
guilty.
customer,
Yeah.
or the yeah, or the money stealing manager, stuff like that. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
so that's
money grabbing, yeah.
exactly.
Tip
So then
taking, yeah.
I want to find holes in, I guess, modern day, like what we do today, and like what if we did have ancient deities of that or modern deities. So like that's how it kind of formed into making my own religions, is like, well, why not?
Yeah, I love it. I just got really deep into, because I took a course in Hinduism, an introduction into Hinduism in university, and what I was very intrigued. But the lecturer, he said that there are perhaps 38 million different kinds of deities in Hinduism, and I said it can't be. It's not possible. No way. And then I got into some reading and I'm saying, well, it is. It actually is. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
that's
lot.
awesome.
It's a lot
Yeah,
to
that's what
take
I
in.
love. Like every city or every town having like their own deity that they can worship or talk about, and it's different, like area by area. Like that stuff I love.
Yeah. So let's talk about myth making, and what do you think? And I want to link it together with our discussion about art, because you know there is the kind of a casual perception of art, all different commercialism and design and branding and fashion. They are considered types of casual art. Maybe they are considered crafts. Yeah, there is a nice partition in the language in Hebrew between arts and crafts, and it's called
Yes.
amanut, and amanut is high art. Okay, it's the great art. Okay, like painting, sculpting, architecture, whatever, and then it's omanut, and omanut is the craft. The craftsman is oman. And
That's beautiful.
So there are those kind of subtle changes, but that partition doesn't seem to be in extant in English so much. You have the crafts and the arts, and you don't know exactly how to go about it. So
the problem is too, is that craftsman is almost just as respected as artists, because a craftsman is like someone who is specialized in their skill, usually with hands-on techniques of like sculpture or woodworking or metal, is like or a ceramicist is like craftsman. Or there's this popular resurgence in craftsman kind of style art or design kind of work. So that's even more muddying of the waters of like, how do you separate someone who does art casually, versus someone who does it as a like full-time artist, or like, you know, trying to achieve something more than just, you know, selling. And there's, in English, it's always a little bit muddier. There's this identity crisis of like, well, what do I label myself?
Yes, yes. I'm a craftsman. Yeah, of course. You make beer. Yeah.
But
you know, there is
like,
between the craftsman and the there is an equal. I see the emerge of craftsmen and hipsters. I see on the and the same sea level, shall we say?
you could say that of like,
Yes.
with the trend of hipsterism, there has
They're
been a trend
great people. They're
handmade.
great people. They don't have a single gray cell in their brains, but I love them. I truly do. Yeah, they are true craftsmen. They are,
Mhm.
but none of them are artists. Almost none
Mhm.
of them. They are true craftsmen, but
Yeah,
it's not an insult. Yeah.
don't get me started on fluid acrylics, or like the flow kind of fluid art. That stuff drives me up the wall. There's a couple of people who did do it really, really well and are actual artists in that field, but the majority of anything you look on, like, I don't know, I think I'm gonna get off topic here, because like that I would have a huge rant about like people who, oh gosh.
Okay.
Who do art.
Yeah. Stop yourself if you can. If you can't, I won't stop you. But okay, moving on. And now for something completely different. Nobody will know that reference, but I'm saying it. Yes, yes, nobody will know that. It's so sad, but moving on to myth making and art. There are a lot of types of art, and myth making is a kind of a general, as you said, a murky term, which is which I like. I like myth making. I like, you know, different terms like dream weavers, stuff like this. It's a physical object, but it's also you know, a philosophical concept also. So talking about myth making, where do you think those kinds of concepts come from? The stories, the ability for humankind to build upon it, to build cultures and religions and a society, to build great nations. Where do you think that comes from? Is there something igniting the pyre, shall we say, of human ingenuity?
I think that's a really, really good question. And it's part of the reason why I'm fascinated with like storytelling and myths, is like where you pulling back that thread of where does it all go to, or where does it all come from. I'd like to think that people have an innate need to tell stories. Either, if you want to be cynical, either it's because it needs to fill in the void of not understanding something, and so wanting to cover that with something that they can explain and have experienced, and or the comfort of knowing, like a lot of religions and myths are comfort, knowing that something is solved, something is told, and it is that way for a reason. Like it's protection against fears of just randomness and chaos in the universe otherwise.
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
yeah, so I have a lot of those thoughts of like, I think human beings are really special because we can craft stories, at least proven. Like, you know, I don't know if a chickadee or some kind of bird is singing a story right now outside of my window.
Yes.
But at least we can tell stories. And I think with myths, it's more of a question like, I guess it's also artists of the past as well, because some of these concepts of like deities are way out of this world, and it might either because we're out of context for the culture now, or they were great wordsmiths of their times, who were able to have this inspiration, have this seed, and where that inspiration comes from is like, I mean, I try to figure that out with myself. Like, I think a lot of my ideas come right before, like there's this trance-like state right before I go to bed, like when you're kind of awake but dozing,
Yes.
and your brain
Yes.
kind of going through, I guess, a shutdown period, or kind of like opening itself up at the end of the day. A lot of my ideas come right then, when like all this flood of information is getting flushed.
Yeah, me too. I find that the most kind of productive hour of the day is 3 o'clock at night. Yeah. Yeah, I truly do. Yeah, that's bam, bam, like clockwork, you know, you hit the 3 hour mark at night and you say, ideas just flow like an endless river. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had times like that. My times shift around a little bit, but I've had similar feelings of like going, and then, oh no, too many thoughts at once. Gotta sit down, gotta do something. But for that source of like, whether it's more scientific of it's your neural pathways, or you know, like dealing with all the subconscious information you've had throughout the day, or if it's something more of like just this spark of inspiration that comes from whatever higher power of being, like whatever people have thoughts for that. But for talking about myth creation and like where does that all come from, I think it's a combination of great storytellers of the past, from myths, hundreds of thousands of years of myths being misinterpreted or changed depending on the area, and then also just this amazing human capability of telling stories and having all this information computing that then can be kind of recombobulated into something new.
Yeah, it's you know, sometimes you call these kinds of stories, they call them creation myths, and I say when you say myth, I think there is a point where you say, okay, you can bullshit a lot, you know, a long time. You can bullshit a lot of people for a long time, but you can't bullshit everyone all of the time. So when you say myth, it's a kind of I think it's a kind of an ignorant term, because the meaning the myth has, or the context that myth has in the modern world, that it means it's a lie. A myth is a fabrication. It's a nice concoction of words that sounds good, that are pretty, that are logical, but they are not real. And at some point I say, well, so I see you nodding your head a lot, and I like it, but I don't know what it signifies.
Oh, it's me thinking, when I'm hearing words that I want to do a thought, I kind of like think back and forth with the stuff that you're thinking. I'm a really like physically moving person. Like you've seen my hands move all over the place. So when I'm really thinking about something, I kind of like
I like
move my head. Yeah. Thanks. But I'm so sorry. Continue.
No, I'm done with my rant. Just say, I just want to make the point across that there comes a time when you say, okay, there is a myth, but there's a myth that's got to be right. Okay, there has to be, but I don't believe we found it, but we found a lot of you know kind of interweaving lines that seem truthful or logical in the story.
Oh yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, and I think that's a good linguistics discussion of like, myth might be an overused word, and how do you specify what exactly you're talking about, or in modern day culture, what does myth mean to people when they say that word. But I do also agree that like the same thing I was saying about earlier about the Saguapa, and like how there's always a kind of story about a lesson about femme fatales, and you know, watch out, you have to make sure that who they are. Like there's kind of like that. It's the same thing as like Noah's Ark. Like in almost every culture, there is a great flood story. And
ancient,
people,
at least, for the most part.
And there's some thought in anthropological and like social thought studies of there are those stories because in human general consciousness, like as us as a population, there was a great flood long ago. It might not have specifically delivered two of every animal to a new continent, but
the timeline is a little problematic. It's very problematic.
But yes, but there is.
I hear this from, I don't want to say kind of people who are on the more conspiratorial side, shall we say, the tinfoil side, but I like those people a lot, because even though some of the things they say are, some of the core ideas they hold are practically clinically insane, but I like their argumentation. They use the scientific method. They everyone uses the scientific method for their own ends, but
depends on the conspiracy.
But,
some are far out than others.
Yes, of course. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And one term that they always use is like the Younger Dryas, the end of the Ice Age. There was this great catastrophe, the kind of coronal mass injection, and I hear those words, and I'm not a man of science. I'm an artist. I'm a historian. I'm an English major. I don't understand that, and I can see that it sounds like a bit of a BS, but I can't prove it. So
yeah, because it's like so back in like history. You're like, well, I mean, there's a lot of things we don't know. Like,
yes.
But it's kind of interesting. Of like, speaking about conspiracy theories, like that might even be like modern myth making of like taking unexplainable things and trying to cushion and say like make it understandable to a point where you feel.
I see it like, in an academic D&D role play. So, it's you're just trying to be a game master. That's it. You're trying to pull your team to find a logical ending, and you say, well, that trapdoor and the dagger is poison, and you you roll the dice, you fail. And I see it like that. They are from the same niche. They're just the greatest magicians, the greatest trollers, and I love those people because they are men and women of science, and I love them. But I can't agree with all those things that are pouring out of their hole in their face. It's problematic. But
you're like you just if you just turned it a little bit, like we'd be fine. But you had to go off the deep end over there. Like everything was good until you jumped off that cliff, and then suddenly I can't follow you on that.
Yes. The tribe will not follow you. No, we'll find another leader. Thank you.
It does make life a little bit more fun hearing those like all the conspiracy theories. Like I sometimes go into dives with them being like, what have people come up with this time? And I'm just like, man, life is really fun. Like they have this drive, they have all these thoughts, and like, it makes life a lot more interesting.
There are people that who are just like, they are walking main characters, They make their characters, they customize it, they do all those things. They just tell themselves these stories, and they embody that character, and they go for it. I mean, they go for it all the way, and that's what that reality will allow this kind of a person to completely negate their nature and their their society, their culture, their upbringing, their education. They can go past that, and that's the aspect that I like in all that craziness. And that's the aspect that I like. People who can but,
I understand. I can see that.
But sometimes you meet a true believer, someone who is completely authentic, and that is the scary part. When you meet someone who is 100% the character that they present from outside.
It's not a front. You're
nothing.
just like, oh, you're serious. Okay. This is
That's-
not funny anymore.
That's scary, yes.
Yeah.
That is intimidating. Yeah. And it harkens back to the question of art. What makes, I'm going to ask a very controversial question, but I like it. I don't like the word controversial, but I like using it to kind of annoy a lot of people because they know that I don't like that word because it's a stupid word that has no meaning because the world is goddamn controversial 100% of the time. And nobody cares about that word. Nobody cares anymore. There's another word like this, like contentious. He found himself in hot water, a bit of the hot water. Like what? Hot water? Are you serious?
It's softer to say like, oh no, like.
Yes, he has been a naughty boy. You can't say this. Just say the goddamn thing. What it is.
I would love for
really.
a news anchor to say that, like a news anchor to be like, someone's been a naughty boy tonight, and we're gonna talk about it.
Yes, 12 years in prison. He has been a naughty boy. Yeah, of course.
Good. Okay. What's your controversial air quotes question then?
Yes. Okay, controversial. What makes art great? What is the X factor that contributes? What is the correct seasoning? We are on a food kind of a vein, and I'm trying to mind that vein because I like it, and I'll try to use it and incorporate it into the conversation more. So what makes art great? Period.
You know, we talked about this a lot in university of like being, well, and that part of being great art is being a true artist and like all these like vague terminologies of like greatness or wonder or things like that. There's a, let's see, getting right to the question of what makes art great. My personal view on it is that the artist behind it is authentic to what they're making, because you can have trendy art, you can have popular art, you can have art that gets into galleries and goes for millions of dollars, but it doesn't mean anything if it's surface level. You look at it and the artist can't talk about why. And you know, other artists will disagree about me. This is the annoying thing. It's like herding cats with artists. Everyone has a like different opinion on what great art is. But the artist behind it, like, you know, there's the stereotype of starving artists is real for a reason, is unfortunately, even though it's terribly toxic way to think about artists, but starving artists are people who do everything for their craft and everything for their art, and they just push it out there and they really think, like really make things because they believe in it. And I think great art, when you look at stuff that's in historically what's in museums and stuff, it's artwork that changed the idea of art in that time period, changing from like first perfecting, getting closer and closer to the perfect human form, as we talked about before podcast. Yes. And then art getting tired of that. So artists who changed the idea of going from trying to paint realism on a canvas to painting the human mind or the consciousness or the question of what is art. And there's some art historians who really hate this artist, but Duchamp did change the game. He did. Duchamp, and I know Duchamp,
I'm sorry to correct you, but I'm an artistic elitist. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I have a terrible accent when it comes to French names. But when he like put in a toilet with his name on it, and people were like, "This isn't art. Like, what are you doing?" And he's like, "No."
He put the manufacturer's name on it. The manufacturer,
right? It wasn't
he let it. Yeah, he let it sign it. It's ridiculous. It came from a toilet.
But he had
store.
It was him questioning of because he'd already at that time become an accredited artist. People were like, "This guy is a true artist." Yes. And so when he put that toilet in there,
I know he's a great artist. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
You are. And there's a lot of art historians who do not like him because he changed the game for art, because he suddenly blew up in the doors of like, well, if an accredited artist says this is art, then who are we to tell him no? And now we're in a period of art where it's like postmodern or something like that,
At
where
least.
the question, yes,
2
where
posts, 3 posts, 4 posts. I don't know anymore.
quad postmodern art, who knows? We're still developing. I think we're still developing in that era right now of change. So, you know, 50, 100 years from now, we'll have a name for what this era is. But
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But right now, the question of is it art is out the window. Everything that you submit is art, but why? Or what was your reasoning behind it? Because, so it's complicated for what good art is, because if you think good art is something that's in a fine art museum in New York, then good art is what, if you have connections to a wealthy investor who will put a lot of money and baggage behind your art, which is one form of art.
Yeah, from the Guggenheim family, maybe. A family fortune.
Yes. Or maybe you're an artist who's ahead on technology and you do NFTs and make like millions of dollars on that, like that one artist did. Or maybe you're a popular social media mogul. Like there's a lot of artists who have like on Instagram, they have like 1 million or 500K followers and they make art that people love, but is that good art? I mean, they have a huge fan base. So that's like the terminology of like successful, made it, good art will be in museums. And there's also technology of like, I went to the Whitney Biennial, like, I don't know, 4 years ago, I think. And the artists at the time were really mixing technology and art together. They were going like one guy, and this was really hard to see. He had virtual reality goggles where he made a program where you could beat someone up. Like you had a bat and you could beat someone up as much as you wanted in the museum. And you heard all the sounds.
You take the glasses off and then you really
and yeah, and you see, but he gave you this choice. It's like, is this person is not real, so you can be as violent as you want right now.
Yes.
In a museum, but you know, like people will see you like watching this, and you will hear a real person yelling and screaming. Like that's part of it. Yeah. And that was really hard to be a part of, but like that kind of art is moving past the canvas, moving past painting and into making people artwork, or making, you know, like involving people more in the process. But for my personal opinion about what good art is, or like what is the best art, it's art that makes you feel something incredibly strongly. Like I think art has failed if you look at a piece and you're like, I feel nothing. Like there's no opinion. Because even controversial, like really
nice
bad
wallpaper, art,
yes.
Great wallpaper, Grandma. Yeah.
What do I call it? Pottery barn art. You look at something, it's a giant seashell, and you're just like, yay. But so there's like a thing to that, because even like art that you're like, oh, this is ugly, it's hideous, I hate it so much, but it made you feel something.
Yes.
Really strongly too sometimes, and I think that's
Here's
successful
your bucket.
art. Yeah, exactly. And then there's beautiful artwork that makes you cry, or makes you really think about it and makes you wonder about why they made it, and it, you know, it can go both ways. So in my mind, that's good art. That's art that deserves to be seen as pure art. Is stuff that gives you an incredibly like strong emotion, stuff that when you look at it, you can't, like, I have something that I think was incredible art. It was collegiate level. Like it wasn't no name someone who's just a student, but I've never been not able to think about that artwork. Whenever I'm feeling like I need a reminder, I think about that art piece and I'm just like, okay, like, you know, that's good. I'm happy I'm thinking about it. Now I can get back to work.
Yeah. So on that, I'm going to ask another kind of not blank, conversation, but a question. So what is your favorite piece of art?
Okay, so I'm going for a traditionalist point then, but and probably also a lot of people have it, but it is Van Gogh entirely, and not just his Starry Nights, but specifically he whenever he would write letters to his brother, he would put sketches in.
Yes. Yes.
And I got to see those in a museum.
Nice.
I know it was
Yes.
a not often collection because his sketches in those pages are very delicate, so they don't show them very often.
Wow.
But he would use a I think I actually have it. Oh, here. He would use these bamboo pens. So
Wow.
what I'm showing is like a piece of bamboo that's cut, and then you can see the tip like this, and it has notches in it to hold the ink. And I didn't clean mine, so it has dried ink on it. But this is what he would use to sketch, because it was cheap and easy to do yourself, where you could just cut it. And he has these beautiful controlled lines of like his these scenes that he was drawing or what he was thinking of, and you can see how his paint strokes are inspired by those strokes later. And I like those specifically because, one, he took the time. I mean, that's how he wrote to people at the time, but he would send sketches to his brother. And two, because I really, really like seeing the process work of artists, not the finished pieces so much, because you can look at those anytime.
Yeah,
but
sometimes.
Yeah, and well, I did get to see Starry Night, and I did cry when I saw it.
Wow.
So yeah, it was. I mean, it was just like incredible. There were colors, like photos can't give it justice of how many colors are in Starry Night. There are colors that you cannot see in a photo that were on the painting, and like the spires that you see, that are supposed to be trees and stuff like that. It's not all black. It's actually got some browns in there too that are dark
and green also.
And I didn't know that. All the pictures I looked at were blurry or not quite good enough. And I got to, but the sketches
let me tell you, the Google Images, the Google Arts and Culture program has amazing photos.
That's good to know.
Yeah. You know, some of them, because some are not photographed as well. They didn't have time because they cover everything. Every type of museum, every type of artist, every type of period, every type of movement, and style,
That's super cool.
Still, it's still cool as hell. Yeah, have to check it out.
But the sketches are my favorite thing, because it's part of like me seeing how another artist works, and their underdrawings, like just like anything, like you could see an underpainting or you could see sketches. Like Van Gogh sketches are like super important to me. His line work is incredible, his control, and also he's kind of for me, like the general public understanding of Van Gogh is very traumatic, I guess. Like it's sad how they misunderstand him, and they make jokes about him losing his ear or eating paint and stuff like that. And I have, if you haven't seen Finding Vincent, the oil painting
Douglas, what's his name? The actor, Michael Douglas? Not Michael Douglas, his father. What's his name? The one who played Spartacus. Yeah.
Oh God, no, I'm terrible at names. This is a terrible thing to ask me. I will never remember. But
it's Douglas, from the Douglas family. Yeah, the family tree. Yeah.
Yes, but that movie is also like one of my favorites, because it's like oil paintings of like animated, which is like mind blowing. But that kind of understanding of like making his history a little bit known, like just like again, ranting about Vincent van Gogh and how much I love him and how people don't quite understand him or paint him off as this goofy, tragic, starving artist, which shouldn't be well, I guess like deified at all. Like, you know, his situation, he made great art.
That's interesting. Deified.
Well, like a lot of great artists were like
of a human being being, well, at least not in the modern age, being deified.
I mean,
maybe
you can kind of see that.
Yeah.
Well, like George Washington is deified. Like he's like a huge American mythological figure.
Yes,
I mean, he's real. But
I got the drift, but I never heard deified. I mean, ascribed to a figure in history. Yeah. It's weird, well, like, but I like it. Yeah.
It's just modern people becoming myth. Yeah, and like the female artist who did the female flowers, like she did the giant.
Yes, Georgia O'Keeffe. Yeah.
So O'Keeffe is currently being, in my opinion, O'Keeffe is currently being deified, because if you go see showings of her work, you also see like pieces of her furniture or pieces of her clothing that she wore all the time, or people having accounts of going to her house and meeting her for the last time, like, and then like documentaries showing her, like every scrap of this person they can find, they put in a museum to be clean and seen and admired. And her whole history is like talked about over and over again, and like described in a way, either traumatic or kind of a messed up love between her and her husband or ex-husband, really. So she's like an example of an American artist who's being deified.
Yeah, I got it. Of course. But
oh, sorry.
No. You're not at fault, because I just wanted to explain. I know exactly what it means, deified, but okay, I'll try to think about it. I don't know. Because yeah, I guess you can say that Elvis Presley and Mahatma Gandhi, they are kinds of the deified people, but it's in the modern world, to say that someone is deified, it is, it's almost laughable. But I'm not saying
well, hold on, let me show you like kind of part of the podcast, but I have something that relates to that as well. This was, I think I got this from MoMA or something like that, but literally what I'm talking about is like this little book of art oracles. So it shows different artists with like halos around them of their artwork, and then something that they're holding. And it's basically, it's kind of like a art tarot card deck, which tells you like how you're feeling for that day. But I just love it for the art. But this is also kind of like deification of great artists as they have like kind of,
Yes. Is that what's his face? Basquiat.
It is, yes. His work is awesome. I love his line work.
Yes, I don't know. I never got into his world, but I understand what you're saying. When I never understood his kind of work. I don't know, because I look at the lines and I look at, you can laugh at people like Paul Klee, and say, this guy is really, taking you for a ride. He's painting like a little toddler. No, he makes no bones about it,
Right.
You can't say that person tries to convey any type of meaning or any type of idea or concept, and yet, when you look at the painting, they are marvelous. He has great lines. He paints like a baby, not even a baby. He paints like how you call it? Like an embryo. He paints like an embryo. He doesn't have hands. It seems that he doesn't have any tools of painting. He just paints, the most boring lines, the most hideous colors, the objects that they are not look like amoebas and like germs, but when you look at the entire picture, you say, this person is doing something interesting here. He sort of scoffs at society and high types of art, and he perceives the kind of old world as very monarchic, very sexist, very colonialistic.
Like the question of like, he is perfectly capable, like that, like into the modern era kind of thing of like, he is perfectly capable of doing these beautiful things. So why does he choose, like the reasoning behind, like, why does he choose to do this then? Because you see in museums of like when you see dot work or colorism and stuff like that, where it's like these huge canvases of one color, people are like, my 5-year-old can do this. You're like, yeah, your 5-year-old didn't do it first.
But you're not Rothko. You will never be. Yeah, that's for sure.
well, yeah, you weren't there first. And secondly, he is capable. He's an accredited artist. The question is, it's not about the work. It's about why he did it, the philosophy behind it, and the thinking of it. But yeah, I can definitely see looking at Clee's work, you're kind of like up close, you're like, why? Like,
Why?
you know, yeah. But then
What
far away,
is
you
this?
start seeing the concepts and stuff like that. But I think what I know of Basquiat is like, I don't know as much about him as I would like to, but I think it's he did a lot of repeating patterns and sketchiness, and no one, I think it's again part of being a great artist is like, honestly, I'm gonna hate to say this, it's kind of luck and hitting it at the right time too. Like we don't know if like, you know, if there are other people before Van Gogh who were doing it, but Van Gogh hit the right time and was also prolific. We don't know if anyone else is doing it because there were a bunch of other artists who were inspired by Japanese prints who were getting them. We just haven't seen the work. So Van Gogh was the lucky, might have been the lucky person just do it, just like Basquiat, just like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. So.
Yes. But Basquiat actually sold, you know, how can you sell a wall, you know? It's like you buy real estate, yeah. So you buy the wall. So it's very.
So that goes into like IP like on like legal experience. That goes into like IP property of who do you own the wall? Do you own the image? Who owns the wall? And like how can you sell that? And then that. Yes, that
no,
is.
I'm just talking about the concept itself, like trying to sell an art on the wall. It is
right.
Very interesting to me. I think maybe even though, you know, the NFTs are not 100%, you know, I don't know, you don't have assurance that that work will stay yours for a long while, because, you know, I've made an experiment just to see, you know, and I managed to copy that an NFT, you know, to the T, you know, every little detailed original resolution, and I have an intermediate kind of a knowledge of technology and you know, Photoshop and whatever. So I have an intermediate experience, but it's not. So it doesn't prove that NFTs are not any better or any worse than a kind of a physical object or artwork. But it's, you know, I don't know about that world. Yes.
Well, it's an interesting foray of digital ownership, because right now there is, for digital artists or images you put up there, there's no way to protect it unless you put watermarks all over it, which kind of ruins the image. So at least NFTs are, if not perfect, a starting conversation of how do you own a digital image.
Yes, I think it's akin to buying a piece of real estate on the moon. I don't know why people do that.
Or like the
why do
Scottish,
you do that?
or like buying a star to name it, or like buying a little piece of Scottish land to be a lord or lady kind of deal. Like,
you want to name a crater on the moon. You want to give a crater on the moon your wife's name as a gift for your anniversary. That is ridiculous. You will never accrue that amount of money. Well, let's face it, you will never accrue that amount of money or finance to be able to go to the moon.
To see that, or at least not in our lifetime. Like maybe it'll be for your great grandchildren kind of deal. Like I have a square inch that's mine. I can stand right.
Yes, I have a kitchen, and a living room,
Well, that goes into a whole, like, conversation of like what sells. Like if people are willing to buy it, then capitalism will be there, or at least like any kind of economic engine will be there to sell it, kind of deal. And I mean, if people are buying it, then someone's making money. So like, if you're gonna fall for that, fine. Make someone wealthy.
Is going to the moon alone. Yeah,
exactly. One person's gonna get there.
Yes. Well, I think this is a great stopping point. I like to try to end on a high note, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a high note, but it feels like it, I think.
It sounds good. It was a really great conversation to have, and I think you asked really, really good questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm getting, yeah, my stripes, maybe, or maybe I'm getting an achievement. Yeah. Well, I think in terms of, you know, I'm trying to write articles, like scientific articles, academically, you know, what's the name? Academically, yeah, reviewed, yeah.
Oh, peer-reviewed article.
Yes, yes, peer-reviewed, I'm sorry. I was
No,
banking, yeah, I was banking on the term. So peer-reviewed kinds of articles about video games, and I think they are a kind of art. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
you know, the emotional, the cultural baggage that lends itself to all types of, you know, destructive behaviors. I don't think it reflects on the pieces of art themselves, which are the video games. And I think I want to find ways to go about it. Yeah.
If you want to talk to a video game company, I'm doing work for an indie game company right now.
Oh, nice.
They're very small, but I'm doing poster work for them, which is one of my like commission basis. But they're if you look them up, they're called Vertical Shift. It's like a VR video game.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'll check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want, I know you're doing peer review, but like for art wise on your podcast, if you wanted to talk, or if you need recommendations for other artists as well, like
yeah,
I know people in a
right? I don't think in Israeli academia there are a lot of peer-reviewed video game-based articles that are being published out there. So this will be, yeah, this will be some, well, yeah, there are some people from the design part of arts, and those design people, they learn computer animations and stuff like this. There was a very great game, I think personally, that came out, an Israeli game, which is also a pride, because the Israeli prides itself on its high-tech progress. And
what was it called?
Ingenuity. I think you know it. It's called Grime.
Yes, Grime was so good.
Yes, so that producer, he came from, I know the guy. I knew him from before, because, you know, it's a small circle of artists in Israel. It's a very small, so there are only 8 million people, yeah. Wow. So the percentage
yeah, that's like that game, like the aesthetic of it and the choices that they made, and the like, again, like going, well, myths and stuff like that, like going into like world building into that kind of deal, like oh man, just like
but what really you don't know, that he is kind of taking you for a ride, because some of the characters' names and some of the terms and the religion of the world, they are based in Judaism. All those they are Jewish and Hebrew names all throughout the game. So yeah.
That's awesome still, because it's like implementing, like that's what makes great lore building, is like using, because like yeah, religions are already here. Like if you don't believe in any religions, and they're the greatest mythologies of all, because so many people believe in them, but regardless of what people believe. But if you take, like, that's how you make good lore and good, because there are already good examples out there. So that's even better.
Yes. So people who don't understand the names and stuff like this, it's okay. They are all Jewish and Hebrew names that are representatives of different concepts. That are specifically to the Jewish religion. Yeah. It doesn't exist in any.
But if you do know it, it's like a great like inclusion of like, oh, I get this. I know what this is referencing. Like you feel like understanding that. So it benefits both for like being seen as creative and being like, I've never heard of this before.
Yeah,
and then
it kind of took away from the experience, you know, because I know all those terms, and I said, well, the magic is gone, you know, a bit.
Oh,
But it's fine. It's fine. It was a great, great game. I never expected it. I saw the developer's name and I was ecstatic because I knew he was Israeli and I knew him. And it's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. Well, well, and thank you for reaching out to me as well. I didn't expect, I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, thank you for liking my work and wanting to talk to me. And like, if you need any, I don't know if you need any like links or anything like that, or social media, or I don't know like what your kind of process is for like developing the podcast from here.
No, we'll talk. We'll jump into business talk, shall we say? Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't want to drag the audience about boring technical details, but you know they are not boring to us.
Yeah.
But in the context of the conversation, I think it's yeah, it's less appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to thank you so much, Lois, for this unexpectedly amazing conversation.
That's awesome. I'm really glad to be on, and thank you so much. And yeah, I'm just, you know, I over talk. So thank you for letting me do my thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great that you over talk as much as you can talk. As much. Okay. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you, I don't know, wherever. I'm not professional. This is not a professional space. This is a thinking space. This is a human consciousness developing experience in the participation of two human souls projecting to you. Okay, thank you so much.